Good morning. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
So, in the last four classes, we have seen, in the first class, we have seen what is the uh, what are importance of insects in the whole world. Then, second class, we have seen about the dominance of insects. Then, third class, we have seen the general diagnosis or general organization of insect body. And the fourth class, we have seen about the types of insect head and the insect sclerites, sutures, and all in insect head. Today, we will continue with the insect head itself. We will be discussing about the appendages of insect head. The first appendage that we will see here today is antenna. You might have studied about antenna. We have a pair of antenna on insect head, and we will discuss about how the structure of insect head looks, structure of insect antenna looks, and how the antenna is modified in different species of insects. One thing we have to remember with respect to insect is that it's not just like human beings. Human beings has almost uniform uh, morphological structure all over the world. Uh, all of them have two pairs of arms, two pairs of legs, head, two pairs of eyes, nose, pair of ears, etc. It doesn't differ much with the case of any human beings, but because of the in the case of insects, because of the diversity of insects in the world, we have diverse morphological variations in all the parts of the insect body. If we discuss about antenna, we hear about 10 types of antenna, more than 10 types of antenna in different species of insects. So what we are discussing about today will be the basic structure of antenna, how antenna is modified in different insects. This is both a theory as well as practical. So this will be the second practical for your morphology part. So listen, it's not that pretty tough. It's a bit simple, but I will try to give so many photographs of the insects which in which we can see this antenna and modifications. I've shown you the antenna during the when we discussed about the head, and you might have seen the antenna of insects also, especially with respect to cockroach. If you take a handle a cockroach and see that at the front of the head, you can see to elongate thread-like mobile antenna. It is moving. It can be moved freely. So insect has a pair of antenna which is freely mobile in nature, and the antenna consists of three parts. Three parts are there for antenna. The basal segment is called a scape. After the scape, we have a pedicel. You can see it over here. You can see it over here. This is the scape. This is the basal segment. So this is the head. And after the scape, we have a very short pedicel. All those things after the pedicel is called as flagella. I will repeat. The basal segment of the antenna is called as scape. After that, we have a short pedicel, and those things after the pedicel is called as flagellum. And you must have seen the flagellum is not a single segment. Flagellum consists of number of segments, and these are called as flagellomeres. The segments in flagellum is called as flagellomeres. So So the basal segment of antenna is called as the scape. The second segment is the pedicel. All the parts after the pedicel is called as flagellum, and individual one, two, three. You can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All these are called as flagellomeres. So the flagellum is divided into a number of flagellomeres. So we have scape, pedicel, and flagellum in an insect antennae, and the uh, scape is attached to insect head by a scleroid called as antennae. Sorry, the scape is attached to insect head by a scleroid called as, this is the scleroid. This is a scleroid, means it is a hardened structure. That scleroid is called as antennifer. So the basic structure of insect is extremely simple. It has a basal scape, then a pedicel. Distal end of the pedicel consists of a flagellum. Flagellum consists of numerous segments called as flagellomeres. The antenna is attached to insect head via a scleroid called as antennifer. Whether the screen is visible for you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, fine. And one thing with respect to these segments, the antenna, the flagellar segments, which we call as flagellomeres, these are not true segments. These are not real segments. Actually, these are simple subdivision. If it is a true segment, means each segment will be having muscles. Intrinsic, we call it as muscles, intrinsic muscles. But the antennal segments doesn't have intrinsic muscles. So these antennae flagellar segments, the flagellomeres, are not true segments. We call it as annulated segments. Just for your information only, these segments are not true segments because these segments doesn't contain any muscles, any intrinsic muscles. So these are called as annulated segments. So it's not a true segmented flagellum. So that's with respect to flagellum. And with respect to pedicel, we have a sensory organ in the pedicel, and that sensory organ is called as Johnston's organ. This sensory organ is also sometimes referred to as chordotonal organ. I will discuss about what is a chordotonal organ later when we discuss about the sense functions of antennae. So the pedicel is having a sensory organ, or sometimes it is referred to as chordotonal organ. It's called as Johnston's organ. So this is the basic structure of antenna. It's a pair of antennas present in insects, which is freely mobile. It consists of a basal scape. It is attached to the head by a scleroid called as antennifer. And after scape, we have a short pedicel, and this pedicel contains a sensory organ or a chordotonal organ called as Johnston's organ. At the distal end of the antenna, we have flagellum. Flagellum is divided into number of flagellomeres. So this is the basal structure of an insect antenna. And now we will see the types of antenna. The antenna, what we discussed was its basic structure. The antenna is varied into different forms in different insects. So this usually it's not a difficult thing to study the types of antenna and all, but it's a usual question. Modification, what is structure of antenna and what are modifications in insects? As usually it is asked as an essay question in final exam. So the first modification is cetaceous antenna. Cetaceous antenna, it's also referred to as bristle-like antenna. It is usually seen in cockroaches. Cockroaches are the typical example of an insect having cetaceous antenna. Just a minute. The basic character of a cetaceous antenna is the segments, as we move from proximal to the distal end, the segment, the size of the thickness of the segment decreases. So that's the basic structure of a cetaceous antenna that you can clearly see it over here. Here, this is the basal part of the antenna. As we move towards the tip of the antenna, the size of the antenna decreases. I will show you a real picture. This is a diagram. And the next type is called as filiform or thread-like antenna. In filiform or thread-like antenna, the structure is different from cetaceous antenna. Here you can see each segment as we move from base of antenna to the tip of antenna, the size of the segments is uniform. It's almost uniform and it's almost cylindrical in nature. This we see in the case of grasshopper. So if we discuss about cetaceous antenna and filiform antenna, the difference is that in cetaceous antenna, the size of the segments decreases as we move towards the tip of the antenna. In filiform antenna, it's different from cetaceous antenna in that the size of the segments remains same. That means it is almost cylindrical as we move from base to the tip of the antenna. So filiform antenna is usually seen in grasshoppers. Here you can see the two antennae. Can you see? This is a cockroach. It is all of you might have seen. You can see the antenna over here. See, as we move from base to the tip of the antenna, you can see the size of the thickness of the antenna decreases as we move from base to the tip. That is called as cetaceous antenna. And take this case of this grasshopper. See, as we move from base to the tip of the antenna, you can see the size of the segments are uniform. It's almost cylindrical in nature. See it over here. See it over here. The size of the segments are uniform. The size of the segments decreases in the case of cetaceous antenna, while the size of the segments remains uniform throughout the length of the antenna, and that is called as filiform or thread-like antenna. So filiform antenna is seen in grasshoppers. So this is with respect to the types, first two types of antenna, cetaceous and filiform antenna. Cetaceous is bristle-like and filiform it is called as thread-like. Next one is moniliform or bead-like. Moniliform antenna is usually seen in termites. In moniliform antenna, each segment is globular or spherical, just like beads in a uh, what to say, നമ്മൾ മുത്തുമാല പോലെ. So just like beads in a we wear, ladies wear a string of beads, മുത്ത് കോർത്തെടുത്ത പോലെ. So it will be, the segments will be globular or spherical, and it is usually seen in termites. I will show you the picture. See it over here. This is a termite. This is a enlarged picture of a termite, and you can see the each segment. These segments are globular in nature, just like beads in a string. So മുത്ത് പോലെ കോർത്തു വെച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന പോലെ. So that is moniliform antenna. It is bead-like because the segments are globular or spherical in nature. So this is example is termite. The next modification, you can see the antenna over here in this insect. This type of antenna is called a serrate antenna. Serrate antenna. This is also called as saw-like antenna. Just you can see it is saw-like. Each segment of antenna has a triangular projection towards one side. See, each segment is having a triangular projection. Can you see the triangular projections over here? So this each segment is having a triangular projection on one side, and it is called a sawtooth shape. So just like a saw. And the example is longicon beetle. I think you might have, at least few of you might have seen a longicon beetle. Longicon beetle are those beetles which are having extremely long antenna, almost of the similar length of the insect body. So serrate antenna, each segment is having a triangular projections on one side. Moniliform antenna segments are globular or spherical in nature. And the next segment, next type of antenna, it is unipectinate, or can call it a pectinate antenna. Here we are discussing about unipectinate. It is comb-like. Here the difference between serrate antenna and unipectinate antenna is that here this serrate antenna we have triangular projections, but in the case of pectinate antenna, the segments are having long slender process on one side. You can see it's not a small triangular projection as in the case of serrate antenna. Here you can see each segment is having a elongate projections, long projections on one side, just like a comb. So that's why it is called as comb-like antenna or unipectinate antenna. And there is a slight modification of this unipectinate antenna, especially in the case of moths, that you can see this extremely beautiful photograph. Here, these thread-like projections are not only on the one side but are on both sides of the antenna. Hence, it is called as bipectinate antenna. Bipectinate. So, this is bipectinate antenna. Example is moths. This, if you take any moth and observe, you can see antenna is having slender projections on either side of the antenna. In unipectinate antenna, you can see slender projections only on one side of the antenna. So long center probes on one side of the antenna. The example is sawfly. So this is unipectinate and bipectinate antenna. Coming to the next uh, kind of antenna, that is clubbed antenna. Clubbed antenna is classified into two. If you refer the literature, sometimes you will be you might see it as clavate antenna, capitate antenna. But for convenience, I have taken one reference wherein it has given a single classification. It is clubbed antenna, and it is further divided into two, clavate and capitate. Clubbed antenna means this is just opposite to setaceous antenna. Setaceous antenna, I told you, as we move from the base to the tip of the antenna, the size of the segments decreases. That was in the case of cetaceous antenna. In clubbed antenna, it is just opposite. As we move from base to the tip of the antenna, the size of the segments increases. The segment increases in diameter distally. So, this just opposite to cetaceous antenna is clubbed antenna. The size of the segments increases as we move towards the tip of the antenna. And we have classified this clubbed antenna into two, clavate and capitate. In clavate antenna, the size of the segments increases gradually as we move towards the tip of the antenna. See, this is slowly the size of the segments increases as we move towards the tip. See it over here. The size of the segments increases gradually towards the tip. This is clavate antenna, which is seen in blister beetle. Blister beetle, it is a large beetle which is having black and red color. This is also common in our area. The next one is the usual modification in butterflies. If you catch hold of a butterfly and observe its antenna, you can see that the segments of the terminal segments of the antenna is enlarged abruptly. In clavate antenna, it was a slow increase in the size of the segments. But here in capitate antenna, which is seen in butterflies, you can see the size of the segments is uniform till it reaches the apical portion of the antenna, and at the apical portion of the antenna, the size of the segments enlarges abruptly. That I will show in this picture. See, this is a typical blister beetle. This is a picture of a blister beetle. So you can see it is clavate. You can see with each segment, the size of the segment increases as we move from the base to the tip of the antenna. As we move from the base, the size increases towards the tip. And this is the antenna of a butterfly. This is capitate antenna. In capitate antenna, you can see up to here the size of the segments are uniform. We can say it is almost similar to a filiform antenna. But after this, you can see there is a sudden enlargement of the segments. That is capitate antenna. There is the size of the segments enlarge suddenly. So that is with the case of butterflies. So clavate, whatever it may be, if the size of the segments increase as we move towards the apical portion of the antenna, that type of antenna is called as club. If the size of the segments increases gradually, that type of clubbed antenna is called as clavate antenna that we see seen in the case of blister beetle. And in the case of capitate antenna, the segments enlarge, the terminal segments enlarge abruptly. The last 2 to 3 segments enlarge abruptly, and that is capitate antenna we see in the case of butterflies. And the next modification is lamellate antenna. In lamellate antenna, the last segments are enlarged But the difference from capitate antenna and laminate antenna is that the segments are expanded laterally towards one side. See, here it is the the size of the segments enlarges both uniformly to both the sides. But here the segments are expanded laterally to form rounded or oval plate-like lobes. I will show the picture, then it will be clear to see this. This is the antenna. This is the common beetle which you see in your home. It comes to the light during night time. This is carabid beetle or dung roller beetle. You might have studied about a beetle which rolls the dung. So whether the signal is breaking?
No, sir. Okay.
Okay.
No, sir.
So here this is the antenna, these are the segments, and you see the terminal segments. These segments are enlarged laterally to oval or rounded plate like. So you see it is plate like lobes. That is called as lamellate antenna, seen in scarabid beetle or dung roller beetle. So it is lamellate antenna. Terminal segments are expanded laterally to form oval or rounded plate like lobes. So that is lamellate antenna. Then we will see geniculate antenna. It is called also called as elbowed antenna. Here the basal, this is usually seen in ants. This is the head of an ant. If you observe the antenna of an ant, you can see that the basal segment, that is the scape, is extremely elongate in nature, and this is the pedicel, and the flagellar segments are at an angle to the scape. You can see the angle. It's not straight like this, which we have seen in the case of filiform or cetaceous antenna. Scape is directed towards one side, and the flagella is directed towards another side. It is at an angle towards the scape. So that's why it is called as elbowed. നമ്മളുടെ കൈ മടക്കുന്ന പോലെ. It is, see, this is considered as the scape, this is the pedicel, and this is the flagellum. So the flagellum is at an angle with the scape. So the first segment is long and subsequent segments are at an angle with the first, that is the scape, seen in ants, that is geniculate or elbowed antenna. The next is plumose and pilose antenna. Mainly it is also called as feathery antenna. This is seen in male and female mosquitoes. Plumose antenna is seen in male mosquitoes and pilose antenna is seen in female mosquitoes. This is the plumose antenna in male mosquito. This is the pilose antenna in female mosquito. You can see the difference between these two antenna. We can see a tuft of hairs in each segment in the case of plumose antenna. Can see numerous hairs. The hairs are more in the case of plumose antenna. But see the case of pilose antenna in the case of male mosquito, in the case of female mosquitoes, you can see that the whorls of feathers are extremely limited in number when compared to plumose antenna. In plumose antenna, where we have number of long hairs, but in the case of pilose antenna, the antenna is less feathery. That means it has few hairs that we can see it over here. The plumose antenna is extremely hairy in the case of male mosquitoes. In pilose antenna, the number of hairs are extremely less in the case of female mosquitoes, that is pilose antenna. So that's the antenna modification in the case of male and female mosquito. The diagram is over here. You can see the picture over here. This is plumose, this is pilose. Here the number of hairs are more, here the number of hairs are low. Then we have aristate antenna. Aristate antenna is which we see in the case of housefly. In housefly, the last segment of antenna is enlarged and the dorsal part of the antenna is having a dorsal bristle called as arista. that you can see it over here. This is a decepted antenna. This is the scape. This is the pedicel, and the flagellum is enlarged, and the dorsal part of the flagellum has a bristle called as arista. That is called as iristate antenna, which we see in the case of houseflies. These are extremely small antenna. It's not that easy to view this iristate antenna in houseflies. So the last segment is enlarged and it has a bristle-like arista. So that is seen in houseflies. And the last modification is stylate antenna. The stylate antenna is seen in the case of roboflies. This is another kind of fly called as robofly. And you can see the terminal segment of the antenna is elongated into a style-like process, a thin style-like process. That is the case of stylate antenna. Stylate antenna. This is aristate antenna. In aristate antenna, last segment is enlarged and bear a dorsal bristle called as arista. This is the arista. In stylate process, the last segment bears an elongate style-like process, and it is seen in uh, roboflies. So this picture is extremely clear. The last segment bears an elongate style-like process, that is stylate antenna. So this is the modifications of insect antenna. We have seen cetaceous, we have seen filiform, we have seen clubbed antenna. In clubbed antenna we have seen capitate and clavate. Then we have seen serrate antenna. We have seen pectinate. We have seen unipectinate and bipectinate antenna. Then we have seen geniculate antenna, then stylate antenna, iristate antenna, then plumose and pilose antenna, uh, lamellate antenna, and bonilliform antenna. So it's pretty easy. One thing you have to remember is what is the modification, how the segments are modified, and with examples. Remember, you have to study the examples, not the modification and how the segment is modified. You have to remember the typical examples also. That's the way you have to study this course. You have to remember the examples in each and every case. Just like we have seen about hypognathus, prognathus, and opistognathus. Whenever you are writing about types of it, in hypognathus means invariably you should write example as grasshoppers. In prognathus, you should write example as beetles or ants. And in the case of opistognathus, the example should be written that should be bugs. So this is the case of types of insect antenna. And now we will move into the functions of antenna. For what antenna is used by insects? The major function of antenna is sensory in nature, to sense the environment. Various sensory functions are performed by antenna, and the first function is olfactory reception. That means smell. Just like we have our nose, the antenna of insects are used for smelling purpose. The next function is tactile function, touch. The antenna, if you have seen the antenna of cockroaches, it moves the antenna vigorously and tries to touch different parts of the surface. And this is to have a sense of touch. This is the tactile function. The cockroaches, because cockroaches is used for touch sensation, it is also called as feelers, to feel the surface or feel the thing. And the next function is to detect the speed of the air, to regulate the air. It's not actually regulation of airspeed, to detect the speed of the air. That's what I told you. The pedicel is having a sensory organ or a chordotonal organ called as Johnston's organ. The function of Johnston's organ is to detect the air speed. We were discussing about locust in the few classes. Now North India is having severe outbreak of locust. And the locust, you might have read in newspapers that the locust move from one area to another and it can fly in a single day, it can fly about 150 kilometers. And that flight is aided by wind. That means it flies along with the wind. But if it comes across a wind, If the wind is blowing against the flying insect, this antenna detects the air speed which is blowing against it. And if the air pressure is high, it turns back and move backward. That's why desert locust, 2 weeks back, the desert locust infestation reached almost Maharashtra. But because of that cyclone which was there in the last week, wherein the wind was blowing towards the North India, that wind carried the locust away from the South India. So this strength of the wind speed is detected by the Johnston's organ, which is a codotonal organ. Then the next is it is used to perceive sound. This is in the case of male mosquitoes and worker bees. So it is used for smelling purpose, for touching, for detecting airspeed, for perceiving sound, that is auditory purpose, then for holding the prey, for predatory insects, those insects which feed on other insects. An insect called as Hydrophilus holds the other insects, its prey, with the help of antennae, so that it can feed on the prey. So for antennae is used for holding prey in the case of Hydrophilus. And certain insects such as Columbola and fleas. Fleas എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ചെള്ളാണ്. Columbola, I think Hasina teacher has entered into the non-insectant orders, of which you might have studied about columbolans. And for columbolans and fleas, the insects, the uh, males catch hold of females while mating, and that antenna, for that purpose antenna is used for clasping females during mating. So if you see the functions of antenna, it is used for mainly used for smelling, second for touch, third for auditory purpose, next for detection of airspeed, next for holding a prey for predatory insect, and the last one for holding the females while mating. This is in the case of columbolans and fleas. And these are the functions of antennae. Now we are moving over to switching over to the next part. The first appendage we have finished, that is antenna. Now we are moving to the next group of appendages, those are mouth parts. So we are moving into the mouth parts, and if you see, the mouth parts is divided into endognathous mouth parts and ectognathous mouth parts in insects. Endo means inside, ecto means outside. See the case of human beings. Our mouth parts, our teeth, tongue, and all, it is inside the head, inside the mouth. So that is called as an endognathous, inside the gnathal area, inside the mouth area, endognathal mouth parts. While most of the insects, majority of the insects, the mouth parts are outside the body. So that it is called as ectognathous mouth parts. In wingless insects, the primitively wingless insects, apterygote or non-insect insect group, such as Protura, Diplura, and Columbola, the mouthparts are endognathous. That is the reason why Proturans, Diplurans, and Columbolans are removed from the insect class, from the class Insecta. So the mouthparts are endognathous in Protura, Diplura, and Columbola, while it is endognathous in Pterygota. Endognathous means ectognathous. Ectognathous means outside the head. Basically, the insect mouth parts can be classified into two. The first thing is biting and chewing, just like humans do. If we are getting some things to eat, we'll bite it and chew it. We'll bite it by the front region. Take the case of any fruit. Take a case of a guava, or take a case of mango. We will bite it. Once the piece is inside the mouth, we will chew it over here with our molar region. So biting and chewing mouth part. And the second kind of mouth part is sucking type of mouth parts, especially fluid feeding insects. The biting and chewing mouth parts, they take solid food, while the sucking type of mouth parts, it is called also called as haustellate mouth parts. The sucking type of mouth parts is also called as haustellate mouth parts. The second type of mouthparts take in fluid. So here, just like mosquitoes, one typical example is mosquitoes. Mosquitoes suck in blood. It's not biting and chewing. So you may think that it is biting, but it's not actually biting. It is piercing its mouthparts into the insect body. So sucking type, it is also called as hostile type. So mouth parts can be ectognathes or endognathes. Most of the insects, it is ectognathes, that means mouth parts are outside. It is endognathes only in three groups, that is Protura, Dipleura, and Columbola. It is not in the insect group now. And it can be divided into biting and chewing and hostile or sucking mouth part. So this is the basic structure of an insect mouthpart. This type of mouthpart, this is a basic chewing and biting type of mouthpart. I forgot to write the heading over here. It is chewing and biting type of mouthpart. This is the basic structure. This commonly we see in the case of grasshoppers, cockroach, etc. It consists of this is the anterior most part and this is the posterior most part. It consists of labrum, that we have seen when we discussed at the case of areas or regions of insect head. On either side, we have heavily sclerotized mandibles just like our teeth. And on either side, we have another structure called as maxillae. And at the posterior end, we have a structure called as labium. So this is labrum, mandibles, this is maxillae, this is labium. We will come to it one by one. Don't worry, we will discuss all the part in detail. And this part in the middle, that is called as hypopharynx. This is almost similar to the tongue of our tongue, just like our tongue. This is the hypopharynx. If you see hypopharynx in an insect, this is just like a tongue of human beings. So labrum, that is the anterior most part. Then we have mandibles. Then we have maxillae on either side. Mandibles are also present on either side. And on the posterior most part, we have labia. And we will go to it one by one. The first part of an chewing and biting mouth part is labrum. Labrum is a broad, flat lobe that hangs before the mandibles. See it over here. This is the it will be like labrum will be like this. This is a broad, flat, lobe-like structure, and this will be hanging in front of the mandibles. Mandibles will be lying like this on either side. One mandible will be here, another mandible will be here, and the labrum will be in front of the mandibles, hanging in front. It can move forward and backward. And this is the anterior most mouth part, and it is attached to clypeus. In the last class you have seen in the anterior most part of the head we have frontoclypeal area, and the dorsal area we have frons, ventral area we had clypeus, and the labrum is attached to clypeus. And the labrum is the anterior most mouth part. Labrum is the anterior most mouth part, the broad flat lobes of the head. It is hanging before the mandibles. So this is with respect to labrum. I'll show a video in that it will be a bit clear. Usually in the practical class, we used to show how we dissect an insect mouth part, and we used to show how the different mouth parts looks like. And the next part is the mandibles. Mandibles is just like our teeth. It is extremely sclerotized. Our teeth is also extremely strong in nature. This is heavily sclerotized. If this is the labrum which is hanging in front of the mandibles, this is the mandibles. One will be here and the other will be here. There are two mandibles, a pair of mandibles on either side of the mouth, and these mandibles will be covered by the lobe-like labrum in front. So it is mandibles, that mandibles will be lying like this. There will be labrum over here, and the medial surface or the mesial surface, that means the inner surface of the mandible. It is differentiated into distal area, that is the tip of the mandibles will be different, having tooth-like incisors. You might have studied about the type of our tooth. These are incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. You might have studied during your biology course. Incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. The incisors are used for cutting purpose. Molars are used for chewing purpose. In the same way, we have a mandible. At the tip, we have incisors for cutting cutting the plant material, and at the proximal part, this area, it is molar area. This is for chewing. I will show the structure. See it over here. This is the mandible. This is the tip of the mandible. You can see incisors. These are so like for cutting purpose. And see the molar area. This is for chewing purpose. These are not pointed. This is just like നമ്മളുടെ അണപ്പല്ല് പോലെ ആണ് ഈ molar area. നമ്മളെ molar teeth പോലെയാണ്. So this is for chewing purpose. This is for cutting purpose. This is a mandible. Don't uh, worry about these muscles, points of articulation and all. Just remember, we have mandible. At the tip of the mandible, we have incisors, and the base of the proximal part of the mandible, we have molar area for chewing purpose. That's present only on the medial area or the mesial area. That means the inner part here, inner part, not the outside part. Coming to the next part, that is maxillae. So this was labrum, and beneath the labrum, posterior to labrum, we had a pair of mandibles, and posterior to mandibles, we have a pair of maxillae. So here it is mandibles, here it is maxillae. Again, maxilla is present on, just like mandibles, maxilla is present on either side of the head. So labrum, we have two mandibles, a pair of mandibles. Posterior to mandibles, we have a pair of maxillae. Both mandibles and maxillae are present laterally on either side of the head. And maxillae is divided into different segments. This is the base of the maxillae. And this part is attached to the mouth. Attached to the insect head. It is attached to insect head. It is attached to an area of the insect called a subgenal area that we have discussed in the last class. So the basal part of maxilla is attached to subgenal area of insect head, and this basal part is called as cardo. You can see it over here. It is called as basal part of maxilla is called as cardo, and distal to cardo is called a structure called as stipes. So mandibles having a basal cardo, distal stipes. At the tip of the stipes, on the inner part of the stipes, we have two lobe-like structure. The inner lobe-like structure is called as Lacina, and the outer lobe-like structure is called as Gallia. So we have basal cardo, distal stipes. At the tip of the stipes, we have two lobe-like structures, and these two lobe-like structures, the inner lobe is called as the Lacina. This is the inner part, and this is the outer lobe, that is the Gallia. And on the lateral side of the stipes, this is the lateral, this is the outside area. This is so on the lateral side, we have a 5-segmented maxillary palpi. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. On the lateral part of the stipes, we have a 5-segmented maxillary palpi. So maxilla is consisting of basal cardo, distal stipes, and on the stipes we have two lobe-like structures, inner Lacina and outer Gallia. And on the lateral side of the stipes, we have a 5-segmented maxillary palpi, and this maxillary palpi is attached to stipe via a scleroid called as palpifur. So the maxillary palpi is attached to stipes via a scleroid called as palpifur. Remember. So maxilla is present on either side of the head laterally, consists of basal cardo and the distal stipes. So that means this is the cardo, this distal part is stipes. At the tip of the stipe, we have two lobes, outer Gallia and inner Lacina, and on the lateral side, we have a 5-segmented maxillary palpi, and this maxillary palpi is attached to stipes via a scleroid called as palpifur. So we've seen the basic mouth part, that is biting and chewing mouth part, labrum. We have seen mandibles, and behind the mandibles we have seen maxillae, or mandibles here, maxillae here, labrum in front of as the anteriormost part of the mouth. And the next part is called as the labium. The difference between mandibles maxillae is that mandibles and maxillae are present on either side of the head. Here it will be a pair of mandibles, here it will be maxillae. But labium is a fused structure. That means it will be like this. So labrum will be hanging in front, labium will be hanging at the back. This is the posterior most part of the mouth. Actually, these are two segments, but it is fused together. Just like maxillae, these are also a pair of segments, but these pair of segments fuse medially towards the midline into a single structure called as labium. So the structure is similar to maxillae, but it is fused along the midline. See, see, this is the structure of labium. If we cut it over here lengthwise, then the structure is almost similar to maxillae. But labium, it is fused together into a single structure, unlike maxillae. And similar to maxillae, the labium is divided into basal postmentum and distal prementum. I am repeating, the just like cardo and stipes in the case of maxillae, labium is having a basal postmentum and a distal prementum. So postmentum is similar to cardo, prementum is similar to stipes. But in labium, there is a slight difference. The postmentum is further divided into basal submentum and distal mentum. So, just like cardo, we have postmentum, but it is further divided in labium into submentum and mentum. Submentum is in the basal part and mentum is in the distal region. And the distal end of the labium is having prementum. This is similar to stipes. At the tip of the prementum, that means at the tip of the stipes, we had two lobe-like structures. We called it as gallia and lacinia. Just like that, in labium, we have two lobe-like structures, and these two structures are called as glossae and paraglossae. The median, the inner part structures, this one and this one are called as the glossae, and the outer structures, this one and this one are called as the paraglossae. So we have postmentum, which is similar to cardo, which is prementum, which is similar to stipes. At the tip of the prementum, we have two lobe-like structures. The inner one is glossae and the outer one is paraglossa. And on the lateral part of the prementum, just like stipes, on its lateral side, we had a five-segmented maxillary palpi in the case of maxillae. Here, on the lateral part of the prementum, we have a three-segmented labial palp. That's one difference. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. We have a three-segmented labial palp on the lateral side of the prementum. And this labial palp is attached to prementum via a scleroid called as palpigere. Maxillary palpi was attached to a stipes via a scleroid called as palpifer, but labial palpi is attached to labium via a scleroid called as palpigere. I used to remember it in this way. We have a LG brand of home appliances. LG TVs, LG fridge and all. And remember labium, that is L, and it is palpigere, G. That is the difference. F and G is palpifer and palpigere. G, labium, that is L. So I used to remember it like that, LG. So this is the structure of labium. It is similar to maxillae, but it is fused along the midline. And the part which is similar to cardo is postmentum, but in labium it is further divided into proximal submentum and distal mentum. And similar to stipes, at the distal part of postmentum we have a prementum, and prementum bears two lobes. The inner one is glossae and the outer one is paraglossae. That is similar to gallia, outer gallia, and inner lacinia. And sometimes in some insects, glossae and paraglossae are collectively called as ligula. Sometimes it is fused also. This is one terminology. Glossae and paraglossae are fused together or collectively called as ligula. And from the lateral side, we have a three-segmented labial palpi, and labial palpi is attached to crematum by a scleroid called as palpigem. So this is the structure of labium. Next one is hypopharynx. The hypopharynx, I told you, it's just like our tongue. This is a median lobe on the ventral wall of the nasal region. So this is labrum, mandibles, maxillae, and behind that we have labium. That is in the medial side. It is fused. So here we have hypopharynx just like a tongue, a median lobe on the ventral wall. This is our ventral wall. The tongue is resting on this ventral wall of the nasal region, and mouth lies between the base of labrum and hypopharynx. This is hypopharynx, and this is labrum, and the mouth lies between labrum and hypopharynx. If you see our mouth also, see our tongue is the hypopharynx, and if this is the labrum, and mouth lies between hypopharynx and the labrum. And similar to our tongue also, the salivary duct opens at the between the hypopharynx and base of labium. You can see our salivary duct opens at the base of our tongue. So in the same manner, salivary duct opens between hypopharynx. Hypopharynx is tongue-like structure, and labium is over here, and salivary duct opens between hypopharynx and base of labium. So this is with respect to hypopharynx. Hypopharynx, you can just like, it is a tongue-like structure. It is a median lobe on the ventral wall of the mouth, and it lies between labrum. Mouth lies between labrum and hypopharynx. And I will show you a YouTube video. You can I will explain it. Whatever things we have seen it over here, you can watch it in this YouTube video. Is it visible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Now observe. I have paused the video. Can you see this one? This area? Yes or no? Can you see the pointer?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. This is the labrum. This is the anterior most part. And this is a broad flat-like structure. This is the labrum. And what you see it over here is this triangular plate. This is the hardened mandible. So this is anterior most, it is labrum. Behind that it is mandibles. This is the one it is used to chew the mouth plant pot. And this one, this is the maxillae, and you can clearly see the maxillary palpi. See, I am counting the segments: 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I told you this is the maxillae. This is again, so labrum, mandibles, maxillae, and you can see the maxillary palpi. And this one is the labium. In another view, it will be clear. See the labium over here. Now it's visible. Labrum, mandibles, maxillae, and you can see the labium over here. I will try to show the three-segmented labial palpi over here. So you can see this is the, see, anterior most we have labrum. On the lateral side we have mandibles. There will be another mandible on the other side. Maxillae, that is on the other side. And posteriorly the mouth is closed by the labium. So anteriorly we have labrum. Posteriorly the mouth is closed by labium. And here inside there will be hypopharynx. Inside. So that's why I told the mouth lies between labrum and hypopharynx. Hypopharynx will be here. Can you see? See, now you can see the labium over here. This is labrum, mandibles, maxillae, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is the labium. This is the medially fused labium 1, 2, and 3. The three segmented labial palpi. See how the insect is feeding. Now the labium is extremely clear now. 1, 2, and 3. The labial palpi. This is the labium, ventral part. This is completely fused together. So this will be the postmentum. This will be the prementum. Here, if you see it over here, this will be the cardo. This will be the stipes. So this is how a structure looks like. See now labium is extremely clear. 1, 2, and 3. So this is the part. This is the maxillae. So this is the stipes, enlarged stipes. This is the chewing and biting. Actually, I should tell it as biting and chewing because first part is biting, then only it comes chewing. So, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any doubts? I'm stopping it over here. Antenna, I don't think antenna and modifications antenna you won't face any problem. But for mouthpart, study it carefully. You have to write in your draw in your record and the basic structure of that first mouth diagram that I have shown you. All the parts together: top, labrum, on the sides, mandibles, then maxillae, and the medial part that is labium, and inside hypopharynx. All the parts together. Not draw it individually. I will, another thing, question: what is flabellate antenna? Flabellate antenna I not discuss because flabellate antenna it's not a basic classification of insect antenna. If you refer the textbooks, many of the textbooks avoid flabellate antenna. That's why I avoided flabellate antenna. I will give a picture of the flabellate antenna later. I think Madhusar's notes it is having flabellate antenna. I won't be discussing much about flabellate antenna because that's not a common classification or not commonly seen. Any other thing? I try to show you a flabellate antenna. I'll show you later in the next class flabellate antenna. It's almost a similar kind of lamellate antenna. So basically there is not much difference. Only some textbooks classify it as flabellate antenna as different from lamellate antenna. That's why I not classified it as. Okay. Anything else? Any doubt? What about the insect head areas and sutures? Was it clear to you? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Fine. If you are finding it finding it difficult to follow anything, you tell me. Sucking type, I'll Akash has asked what about sucking type. Tomorrow I will take sucking type. These are modifications. Today I discussed only about the basic kind of insect mouthpart, that is biting and chewing mouthpart. Tomorrow I will discuss about sucking type, how the mouth parts are modified. So that will be tomorrow. That will be dealt with tomorrow. Okay, fine. Attempt those exams which I am fixing it Moodle. This is just for your revision. That will help you in identifying, getting the things more clear. Okay, fine. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.